but she dared not turn him over. She did not have the courage to turn him over. Why? Because he had a wound there. Where was thou? Now her anger was ebbing, and she was anxious again, and she rose, wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Now her anger was subsiding, and she was getting anxious. She was eager. Again, she got up and started wiping her hands on the wrong towel. She wouldn't have wiped her hands on that towel, but absent-mindedly she wiped her hands on that towel. Then, lest the man be chilled, she put the quilt over him, and she thought that the man will get cold, he'll catch cold. So she covered him with the quilt. Sadao, she called softly. He had been about to come in when she called. His hand had been on the door, and now he opened it. So when she called, he was just about to come inside. He had his hand on the knob only. He was opening it and entering. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag and that he wore his surgeon's coat. Now she saw him. He was wearing his surgeon's coat, and he was also carrying his bag. You have decided to operate, she cried. Yes, he said shortly. He turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel upon the floor of the tokonoma alcove and put his instruments out upon it. Now, tokonoma is a niche or an alcove in a Japanese home for displaying a flower arrangement, kakemono or other piece of art. Now this is a small shelf-like place made in the wall where they displayed flowers or any other showpieces. So he put a sterilized towel there, and he started laying his instruments, the instruments that he would be needing for operation, on that towel. Fetch towels, he cried. She went obediently, but how anxious now, to the linen shelves and took out the towels. Now he said, fetch towels, get the towels, he said. And obediently she went to get the towels, but she was quite anxious, eager, because she was worried. Earlier also she said, what if he lives? To the linen shelves, she went to the linen shelves where they kept all the linen and took out the towels. There ought to also be old pieces of matting so that the blood would not ruin the fine floor covering. So they needed mats to put on the floor so that the blood does not stain the floor covering. They had covered the floor with matting and all. She went out to the back veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting with which to protect delicate shrubs on cold nights, and took an armful of them. Now she went to the back of the veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting. He must be keeping pieces of mats with which he used to cover the shrubs, small plants, with those mats on cold nights to prevent it from getting spoilt. But when she went back into the room, she saw this was useless. The blood had already soaked through the packing in the man's wound and had ruined the mat under him. So the mat on the floor was already stained with blood, because the packing which Sadao had done of weeds, through that the blood had oozed out. It had leaked out from that, and it had stained the mat on the floor. Oh, the mat, she cried. Yes, it is ruined, Sadao replied, as though he did not care. Help me to turn him, he commanded her. Now he told her to help him turn the man. She obeyed him without a word, and he began to wash the man's back carefully. Yumi would not wash him, she said. Did you wash him then? Sadao asked, not stopping for a moment his swift, concise movements. Yes, she said. He did not seem to hear her, but she was used to his absorption when he was at work. Now, when she was helping him to turn the man, she in between said that Yumi was not willing to wash him. Absent-mindedly, he asked her, Did you wash him then? Spontaneously, he asked her, but he did not care much for the answer. No, without stopping his movement, which were very quick and very, very precise movement, he was cleaning the back of the man. Yes, she said. He did not seem to hear her. He was so engrossed in his work that he did not seem to hear her. And she was used to this. She knew that when he was working, when he was doing his work, he was too absorbed to be aware of his surroundings. She wondered for a moment if it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked, so long as it was for the work he did so excellently. So, for a moment, she wondered if he really bothered who was in front of him upon which he was working. So long as he did his work, he was so engrossed in his work and he did his work to perfection. You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it, he said. I? She repeated blankly. But never have I. It is easy enough, he said impatiently. Now he told her that in case the man needed anesthesia, if he stirred in between, if he started gaining conscious because of the pain, then she'll have to give him anesthetic, that is to make him faint again. To this she was a little nervous. She said she had never given anesthesia earlier. So he said impatiently that it is easy, it is not difficult.